Hey guys, well that was the introduction to a video I was going to do today about voodoo magic, and during the presentation I was going to sort of refer to some research that I did earlier this year on zombies, and I kept coming across some of the research that I'd saved back then. I decided to do this video about the zombie research that I did and do the voodoo magic video next. So this video came about as a result of a conversation I had with Kathy from Jack's Fan. Now, I'm not going to say too much about the conversation, but at one point we both sort of like had the idea that maybe we were a zombie workforce, yeah? The conversation took some other turns, but I came home and had a look and quite got into it, and then something happened and I sort of shelved it and thought maybe I was on the wrong track, but I've just found some more information that sort of backs my story up a bit, so here we go. So, the following is a list of zombie feature films. Zombies are fictional creatures, usually portrayed as reanimated corpses of virally infected human beings. Now, these are the films that have been made in alphabetical order. I think White Zombie, the 1932 film, was the first zombie film. So I've seen a lot of these as well. I expect a lot of us have. But look at this. Look, we're only in C's. Contracted, corpses are forever, children of the living dead. Up here you've got like 28 weeks later, all that lot there. Quite scary films. Dead Girl, Doom, The Earth Dies Screaming, Exit Humanity, Gory Hallelujah. Oh, it's just, yeah, it's just, well, you get the idea. They're extremely big in the human psyche, zombies. So start here. So this site is Tony Healy, best-selling author, so he's written some novels and he's written a little piece here about zombies. So the Creole word zombie is derived from Nzambi, a West African deity. In his book The Magic Island, William B. Seabrook recounts his experiences on Haiti, including The Walking Dead. The eyes were the worst. It was not my imagination. They were in truth like the eyes of a dead man. Not blind, not staring, unfocused, unseeing. The whole face, for that matter, was bad enough. It was vacant, as if there was nothing behind it. It seemed not only expressionless, but incapable of expression. Zombies were once normal people, but underwent zombification by a bokor or voodoo sorcerer. The victim then dies and becomes a mindless automaton, incapable of remembering the past, unable to recognise loved ones, and doomed to a life of miserable toil. So, there have been attempts to explain zombies in Haitian voodoo culture as a kind of pharmacological act, that the bokor were using a cocktail of neurotoxins and dissociative drugs to bring their victims to a zombified state. These hypotheses have been met with much scepticism, as whilst the theory of drugging a person into a zombie-like state does make some logical sense, it does not account for their stilted gait or deathly trance. Stilted gait and deathly trance, that is a little bit of, I don't know, Hollywood, I think. So there's some accounts here about people who died and then returned like 10 years later, just completely out of it. There's a case of a guy called Clovis Narcisse, who appeared in 1962 claiming that for about 20 years he'd been working as a slave for somebody. Other people have sort of called that out, but let's keep going. Now this lady here, hang on, let's have a look here first. Yep, Now this is about, this is from the Great Plains Skeptic. Zombies, where does the idea come from? So this is about a tribe called the Fon tribe. Now the Fons lived in Benin, but back then I think it was called Dahomey. Yeah. Now they had very, very strong, because these people are mad. It's about magic and spirits and animism and the ancestors, and they had a very, very strong belief that when people died, their shadow walked with you. So they said that death was sacred, and their ancestors walked beside them every day, and were even a part of them. And their second belief was that when someone dies, part of them is reincarnated. So they couldn't sentence a person to death because they would be able to roam freely among the population as a spirit. So what they did, they developed a form of lobotomizing people with toxins. So the answer was that the Fon people came up with, or the answer that the Fon people came up with is something that both fit their belief and turned a negative member of society into a positive one. Rather than executing someone, they would attempt to disable the person's ability to make the decisions that led to the crimes the people feared. In the worst cases, this involved inflicting a form of brain damage using various toxins and allowing the person to contribute to the society in whatever remaining capacity they had. Yeah? This culture was carried across the Atlantic during the slave trade and eventually mixed with the Christian culture and was carried to Tahiti. Now, when the slave trade was in progress, they came to England as well. There were a lot of black people in England, and I'll show you some evidence in a minute. So this lady here, she's describing what actually happens when you mix basically alchemy, which is giving a human being a toxin which effectively knocks out their nervous system to the point where they're alive but can't move. It's like sleep paralysis, but they can't move their eyes, they can't move anything. And then they're dug up by a bakor, who's the medicine man. I'll just play a little bit.
When you put together that trauma, that pharmaceutical trauma, with religious belief, is when you get the total effect of the punishment that zombification means. Why? Because if you are a believer in Vodun, you believe that one of the components of your soul, the petit bon ange, holds your willpower, your ability to decide for yourself. And during zombification, when they come and get you out after they bury you, the bokor, the priest, will capture your petit bon ange in a bottle, and your willpower is then sealed under someone else's control.
There you go, see? Magic. That's power over the mind. So then I found this guy here who's a neuroscientist. He's a neuroscience writer, and he talks about voodoo, zombies and the pufferfish. Vodun, popularly known as voodoo because of Hollywood's misrepresentation, is a religion that originated in West Africa. It can be traced back to the 18th and 19th century Yoruba people who lived in parts of the countries that today are Togo, Nigeria and Benin. Benin, that's where we stole their bronzes. Some anthropologists believe that their roots go back 6,000 years, and it is the dominant religion Haiti, and was recognised as the official religion of Benin in 1996. So Vodun practicing West Africans are still, in the majority. So Vodun practicing West African slaves were shipped to work on French plantations in Haiti. The French tried to get them into Catholicism, but they secretly continued to practice their own religion. So this is why you get this sort of like very strange combination in voodoo, ornate sort of Catholicism, and then the animism of their original religion. And I'll be looking into that more when I do my other videos, because I'm going to look at other magical peoples as well. So they followed a pantheon of spirits called the Loa, and so in Haiti, zombification is a punishment for severe crimes. Now, when I was researching it the first time around, I found a video on YouTube about zombies, and there was a really good comment. I should have saved the video. I've just tried to find it, and this chap in the video was saying that it was used in West Africa as a social tool, as something preferable to prison. They would use this zombification process to have a slave, and then let's say he'd committed some crime that demanded 18 months hard labour. After the 18 months they just stopped giving the toxins. Now sometimes he went back to normal and sometimes he didn't, yeah, and that's quite important to remember that. So what they do, the active ingredient of this coup poudre is a tetrodotoxin, TTX, we'll call it TTX, produced in the liver and ovaries of some species of pufferfish. So it's a neurotoxin 500 times more potent than cyanide. It acts by blocking the sodium ion channels, which enable nerve and heart cells to produce electrical impulses in minuscule doses, so you have to know what you're doing. So these bocors and these people that have this knowledge know what they're doing, you know? They know exactly what they're doing. So breathing and pulse rate are undetectable, metabolic functions are depressed, so they look dead and they're buried alive. So a few days after being buried alive, they're brought back out and given another powder containing atropine and scopolamine. These are toxic and hallucinogenic compounds from the plants Datura metal and Datura stramonium, both known as the zombie cucumber. This powder, when administered, puts the victim into a permanent state of delirium and disorientation, in which they experience delusions and hallucinations. But he or she can then be made to do menial work for those against which the crime was committed. Yeah. So this is Datura, also known as devil's trumpets, moonflowers, jimson weed, devil's weed, hell's bells. Hell's bells is actually a very well-known saying in some parts of England. In the north of England, people tend to say hell's bells. Hang on. It's a genus of 9 species of poisonous flowering plants. Yeah. And these are Victorian illustrations of Datura. So, were we being used as a slave workforce? Did they use zombification methods on us? Now, there were plenty of black Victorians. The history of black people in Britain certainly goes back a long way. Well, before the reign of Queen Victoria, there were black people in Britain in Roman times, and there's been continuous black presence here since 1555. The 18th century saw great expansion in Britain's black population. After the War of the Spanish Succession in 1713, British slavers dominated the famous Atlantic slave trade. So they were bringing people from the west coast of Africa. So are we saying that these people who came from the west coast of Africa weren't bringing their religion with them as well? Was it only happening in places like Haiti and the Caribbean? Because I'm pretty sure that they would have carried on using their religions. I know a lot of them became Christianized by missionaries, and also Islam is a religion in West Africa. But I think I actually closed the window. It was an exhibition of Sally Forbes. Let's find it for you. Now, Sally Forbes was given to Queen Victoria by the King of Benin, previously Dahomey. Yeah? Sally Forbes Bonetta. Sally Forbes Bonetta was a West African Igbado princess of the Yoruba people. Dahomey, yeah, Dahomey I was saying, Dahomey, which was Benin. So here she is, and she ended up with Queen Victoria. She was born in 1843, and she died aged 36 to 7 in Madeira, in Funchal, of tuberculosis. So she married another West African guy in Brighton. So, yeah, they were here, and I'm guessing they brought their medicine with them. Now, we all know about what was going on in Victorian times in England, eh? Now, these are some of the mental patients' photographs. Look at these eyes on these people. How did these people go mad? I mean, you could say it was because they survived an event, or these things happened to them once they were in the asylum. Yeah? But were they mentally coshed by datura and pufferfish or whatever? And kept them in places like this, because you see, these people, I mean, these guys that were looking after them weren't carrying guns. You know, they weren't carrying any guns, and this lot could quite easily overpower those two, and then everybody else could get their act together and do the same. Look at this lot. Look at them all. What are they doing? It said they could be put to menial work. Maybe some of them were too cosh to do very much, because look at this. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people looking after all those men. And when they talked about building the panopticon at Millbank, let's see if I can find her. Here she is. At Millbank, the panopticon, Jeremy Bentham, whose idea it was, wanted to do it on the lines of like the panopticon with one lookout point in the middle, so that you could look at all the prisoners. And they used to, and they kept them in the hulks as well. I think I saved the pictures of them. Prison hulks. I think the voice will be going slow, but it's okay because I've saved. Yeah. And I think that it was reformers that stopped this practice, maybe, of doing this to them. And how did they do it? Well, they gave them a lot of gin, didn't they? Maybe they just stuck it in the gin. I don't know. But there was a huge workforce, and there were a lot of people doing a lot of work. There was a lot of stuff done, and we don't know how it was done. There was a massive workforce. A lot of people probably died. They kept them in prison ships, and they put them in mental hospitals when they weren't any good anymore. It just doesn't make any sense, does it? Hey? Look, all these women. All these women like in a mental hospital. These are all old women. I don't know what's gone on in this world. I don't see it beyond the realms of possibility that a means of psychologically coshing a workforce came into their possession and they decided to make the most of it. Look at this person. And then maybe they lost the potion and decided to do it with what do you call it, electroconvulsive therapy or whatever. I just don't know. Anyway, it's a theory, datura, yeah? This is being taken as a recreational drug. It's got shamanic context for religious purposes on most continents. When they give it to people in the zombification process, it makes them seriously confused and mildly hallucinating a lot of the time, and memory goes. Yeah, memory loss is another one of these, and memory loss is another thing that seems to be around, doesn't it? People not remembering what on earth is going on or where they've come from. The physical effects, sedation. Yeah. So, anyway, that's another idea of mine, that maybe we were a zombie workforce, guys, you know. I don't know. Let me know what you think. Thanks for watching.